You're not lazy. You're overloaded. You're distracted. You're drowning in your own mental bathtub. And when a bathtub is overflowing, you don't add more water. You don't pour in productivity hacks. You don't buy a new planner. You pull the plug. From lazy to legendary, it doesn't start with motivation. It starts with subtraction. People tell me all the time, Evy, I'm just lazy. I have no discipline. No, that's a story. And the story is killing you. Because once you label yourself lazy, you stop fighting. You surrender. You sit on the couch and say, that's just who I am. Let me tell you something I learned in Thal life. No one wakes up legendary. They wake up early. There's a difference. When I was a young agent, I was not the strongest in the room. Not the fastest, not the most experienced. I walked into rooms filled with former military operators, guys who looked like they were carved out of granite. I'm 5 feet 2 inches. Greek, Brooklyn attitude. That's what I brought. You think I didn't feel small? But here's what I understood fast. Capability isn't built in giant heroic moments. It's built in boring, repeatable, microscopic steps. Shoes by the bed. That's it. When I was training, there were mornings I didn't want to get up. My body hurt. My confidence was low. So I made a rule, before I sleep, my running shoes go right next to the bed. When the alarm goes off, my feet hit the floor and they slide into the shoes. No debate, no philosophy, no how do I feel today. Action first. Emotion later. You don't wait to feel like a legend. You move like one. Why does this matter? Because most of you are negotiating with yourself all day. Maybe later. Tomorrow. When I'm ready. That's not laziness. That's cognitive overload. You're drowning in options, drowning in self-talk. I interrogated people for a living. I watched how the mind collapses under pressure. And here's what I learned. The human brain will choose comfort over growth every single time if you give it too many choices. Too many choices. So you remove them. You simplify. You shrink the steps so small it's almost insulting. You want to write a book? Write 1 paragraph? You want to get fit? Do 10 push-ups? You want to fix your marriage? Ask one honest question. Small? Embarrassingly small. When I was on a presidential detail, protecting one of the most powerful people in the world, do you think we said, let's just make sure today goes perfectly? No, we secured one perimeter, then the next, tree to tree. When you're lost in the woods, you don't try to see the whole forest. You make it to the next tree. Just the next tree. Say that with me, just the next tree. People are far more capable than they think. Far more. But they sabotage themselves because they want the transformation to look dramatic. It's not dramatic. It's boring. It's repetitive. It's shoes by the bed. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. If every bar you go to, you get in a fight, is it the bar? If every goal you set falls apart, is it the goal or is it your system? I had a family member once who would start something new every 6 months. Gym membership, business idea, new diet. And every time it failed, she'd say, I just don't have discipline. No. She had no structure. Big dreams, no micro steps, big ambition, no daily execution. That's not laziness. That's fantasy. Legendary isn't built on fantasy. It's built on facts. Facts win. I feel doesn't win. I think doesn't win. What did you do today? That wins. What did you do today? From lazy to legendary starts with this brutal truth. Stop analyzing why you are the way you are. Accept it. Move forward. You didn't have structure growing up? Fine. No one pushed you? Fine. You failed before? Fine. Now what? You always have a choice. Even when it feels like you don't, even when you're tired, even when you're scared, even when you've convinced yourself you're just not that type of person. You are not that special. Your struggle isn't unique. And that's freeing, because if millions of people have climbed out of worse, so can you. But it won't start with a leap. It starts with the steps so small it almost feels stupid. Let's talk about the trap. The lazy trap. It's not laziness, it's identity. I wasn't just listening to what people said. I was watching how they saw themselves. That's the game. That's always the game. You don't act against your identity. You defend it. If you believe you're lazy, your brain will protect that belief. It will gather evidence. See? You didn't wake up early. See? You quit again. The brain is like a prosecutor building a case against you. And you're both the defendant and the jury. I once interrogated a guy involved in financial crimes. Smart, educated, polished, But he kept saying, I'm not a criminal. I'm not a criminal. Over and over. But his behavior? Criminal? Here's what I told him. You don't get to define yourself by intention. You're defined by action. Silence. Hit. You don't get to define yourself by intention. You're defined by action. Read that again. You say you're hardworking? Show me. You say you want to be legendary? Show me. You say you're done being lazy? Show me. Not tomorrow. Today. This is where people get uncomfortable because they want to be judged by their potential, not their behavior. Potential is sexy. Behavior is boring. But behavior is the only thing that counts. And here's the technique I used in interrogations that you can use on yourself. Remove emotion. Insert fact. When someone said, I feel like I didn't do anything wrong, I didn't argue feelings, I'd say, here's the timeline. 3:12 p.m., you entered the building. 3:27 p.m., funds were transferred. 4:02 p.m., you left. Facts win. When you tell yourself, I'm just lazy, I want you to cross-examine that statement. What are the facts? Did you go to work? Did you show up for your kids? Did you answer emails? Did you scroll for 3 hours? Be honest. You're not lazy. You're undisciplined in specific areas. Specific, and specifics are manageable. Vague identity, overwhelming, specific behavior, fixable. I had a consultation once with a CEO, massive company, millions in revenue. He told me, I procrastinate. I'm lazy. I asked him on what? He paused. Turns out he only avoided tasks that involved confrontation. Firing someone, renegotiating contracts, holding people accountable. That's not laziness. That's avoidance. And avoidance grows when you let it breathe. You don't fix avoidance by shaming yourself. You fix it by shrinking the exposure. I told him, schedule 1 hard conversation per week. That's it. 1, shoes by the bed. He resisted. That's too simple. Exactly. You want it to be dramatic so you can excuse yourself when it fails. But small steps remove excuses. Here's another story. When I was early in my career, I had to qualify on firearms regularly. One day, my performance dipped. Not terrible, just not sharp. And you know what my brain did? Maybe you're not cut out for this. Maybe you're slipping. That voice is fast and vicious. So I did what I tell you to do. I went to facts. How many hours did I practice that week? How much sleep did I get? What was my hydration like? The answer? I'd been overworked, underslept, and distracted. That's not incompetence. That's a flooded bathtub. So what did I do? I didn't question my identity. I fixed my inputs. Sleep, hydration, focused reps, performance came back. Legendary isn't about never dipping. It's about adjusting faster than other people. Adjust faster. Most people spiral. They dip once and build a narrative. See? I knew it. That narrative becomes the iceberg under the water. Massive, heavy, invisible to others but steering your whole life. Iceberg. People show you the tip. Confidence, ambition, hustle. Underneath, doubt, fear, old stories. You don't melt the whole iceberg overnight. You chip at it. One belief at a time. So here's your assignment. Write this down. What area do you call yourself lazy in? Be precise. Then list the last 7 days of actual behavior in that area. No emotion, no drama, just facts. You might discover you're not lazy, you're inconsistent. Inconsistent is fixable. Lazy feels permanent. Inconsistent is tactical. See the difference? From lazy to legendary is not a personality transplant. It's a behavioral correction. Let me tell you something that will make some of you uncomfortable. You're not lazy. You're surrounded by low standards, low energy, low vibration people who normalize mediocrity, and you've convinced yourself that's just life. It's not life. It's your circle. We were obsessive about perimeter. Who gets in? Who stays out? Who stands where? You don't just let anyone wander into a secured area because they seem nice. Predators look for easy prey. So does complacency. Energy is contagious. Discipline is contagious. But so is laziness. So is complaining. So is good enough. I saw this clearly when I was protecting a president. High-pressure environment. Long hours. Constant movement. You had 2 types of agents. The ones who sharpened each other and the ones who drained each other. One agent would say, let's run drills again. Another would say, relax. It's fine. Fine. Fine is a short-term friend, long-term enemy. You hang around enough fine, and legendary becomes impossible. I learned this the hard way. Haha. Of course I did. Early in my career, I had a small group of friends outside the job. Good people, but comfortable. Very comfortable. Weekends were drinks, complaints, talking about what they should do with their lives. I'd leave those nights feeling heavy. Not inspired. Heavy. That's your bathtub again. Every conversation is water. Every complaint is water. Every excuse you listen to is water. At some point, you're overflowing. And then you label yourself lazy because you don't feel like doing anything. No, you're cognitively exhausted. One night after a detail, I remember sitting in my car before going into one of those gatherings. I was exhausted but driven. I had goals, physical training, career advancement, personal growth, and I knew if I walked into that environment, I'd shrink. So I didn't go small step, shoes by the bed. Instead, I went home, slept, woke up early, trained. It sounds minor. It wasn't. That was the moment I stopped trying to be liked by everyone and started protecting my energy. Who are you letting into your circle? Be honest. Are they pushing you or pacifying you? There's a difference between a friend who supports you and one who sedates you. Support challenges you. Sedation soothes you. And you can't build legendary while sedated. I once consulted for a young entrepreneur, smart, capable, but stuck. He said, I just can't seem to execute. I asked him about his environment, roommates who slept till noon, friends who mocked ambition, family who said, don't aim too high. You think that doesn't matter? If every day you're surrounded by people who whisper, stay small, you will shrink, slowly, quietly, not because you're weak, because you're human. We adapt to our environment, adapt or leave, but don't sit there trying to change everyone. Iceberg rule, accept people as they are. Your friend who loves comfort, that's who they are. Your coworker who avoids responsibility, that's who they are. Your cousin who mocks growth, that's who they are. You don't get to impose transformation on them. Who are you to impose that? But you do get to choose your proximity. Proximity is power. Close proximity to driven people will stretch you. Close proximity to stagnant people will shrink you. It's physics. And here's the hard truth. Sometimes you feel lazy because you're constantly rescuing drowning people. The drowning rescuer, you try to save everyone, fix everyone, motivate everyone, and they pull you under. Not because they're evil, because they're drowning. You can't build your life while constantly saving others from theirs. Sometimes the most powerful small step is distance. Less time, less exposure, less emotional investment. Not dramatic, tactical. From lazy to legendary requires ruthless environmental audits. Write down the 5 people you spend the most time with. Next to each name, write one word, energizes or drains. Be honest. If you see more drains than energizes, that's not laziness, that's leakage. Plug the leaks. Let's talk about fear, because what you call laziness is usually fear wearing comfortable clothes, fear of failing, fear of looking stupid, fear of succeeding and having to sustain it. Fear is subtle. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers later. There was a moment that burned this lesson into me. Active threat. Chaos. Information incomplete. Heart rate up. Adrenaline flooding. Every instinct in your body says one thing, protect yourself. But the job? Move toward the danger. That's the contract. And here's what people don't understand. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's movement despite it. Fear is natural. Avoidance is optional. Optional. In that moment, I didn't feel brave. I felt afraid. But I had trained myself to take 1 step forward, not 10. 1. Just the next tree. When you're building your life, the danger isn't bullets. It's exposure. Starting the business, posting the video, applying for the promotion, ending the relationship. Your nervous system reacts the same way. Threat, risk, unknown. So what do? You scroll, you snack, you reorganize your desk, you tell yourself you'll start Monday. That's not laziness, that's your body trying to keep you safe. Safe is comfortable. Safe is predictable. Safe is small. Legendary is not safe. But here's the key. You don't jump into chaos. You inch into discomfort. When I first started public speaking after leaving government service, I was terrified. Yes, terrified. New arena, new skill, no badge, no authority except my voice. First keynote, I over-prepared like my life depended on it. I rehearsed in my living room, out loud, again and again, shoes by the bed. Not, I'm going to be the best speaker in the world. No, I'm going to rehearse this section one more time. Small step. After that first event, I didn't say, "You're amazing." I said, "Where did you hesitate? Where did your voice shake?" Facts. Then I fix one thing for the next one. Fear shrinks when exposed repeatedly in small doses. You don't conquer fear in one battle. You domesticate it. Let me give you a simple framework I used in interrogations that applies here. Name it. Neutralize it. Narrow it. Name it. What exactly are you afraid of? Be specific. Neutralize it. What's the realistic worst-case scenario? Narrow it. What's the smallest step that moves toward it? I once worked with a young woman who said she was lazy about dating. She wanted a relationship but never put herself out there. Truth? She was terrified of rejection, so we named it. I'm afraid someone will say no. Neutralized it. And then what? You survive. You've survived worse. Narrowed it. Send one message. Just one. One. She didn't need to become fearless. She needed to tolerate a little discomfort. People are far more capable than they think, but they treat fear like a stop sign. It's not a stop sign. It's a green light wrapped in anxiety. And let me be blunt, if you wait to feel ready, you will die waiting. Ready is a myth. Confidence comes after action, not before. After, not before. Say that again. After, not before. The first time I qualified with top scores after that dip I told you about, it wasn't because I felt confident walking onto the range. It was because I had done the reps. Reps create evidence. Evidence creates confidence. Confidence fuels more reps. That's the cycle. Lazy is a label. Fear is a signal. Action is the cure. But here's where most people sabotage themselves. They take one uncomfortable step, feel the sting, and retreat. That's like going to the gym once and expecting abs. No. Consistency beats intensity. Intensity is emotional. Consistency is mechanical. Legendary is mechanical. Let's get into discipline. Not the highlight reel. Not the motivational poster. The real thing. Discipline is not intensity. It's structure. When I was growing up, my home life wasn't stable. Emotions ran high. Volume ran high. Predictability low. So what did I crave? Control. Not control over people. Control over myself. Structure saved me. Clear expectations, clear standards, clear consequences. You qualify or you don't, you show up or you're gone, you perform or you're replaced, clean. Most people don't fail because they lack ambition. They fail because they lack structure. Ambition without structure is fantasy. Structure without ambition is stagnation. You need both. Let me tell you about a period in my career when I was juggling insane hours. Travel, protection details, training, family responsibilities. I felt stretched thin. The bathtub was filling fast, and I caught myself saying it, "I don't have time." That phrase is dangerous. "I don't have time" is usually code for "it's not a priority." We all have 24 hours. The president has 24 hours. You have 24 hours. The difference? Allocation. So I did something simple. Not sexy. Simple. I tracked my time for 1 week, every hour, what I discovered. Tiny leaks everywhere. 10 minutes here, 20 there, conversations that added nothing. Scrolling that dulled my brain. Leaks. You don't need a life overhaul. You need a leak audit. From lazy to legendary isn't about becoming superhuman. It's about becoming intentional. Here's the discipline rule I live by. Reduce friction for what matters. Increase friction for what doesn't. Shoes by the bed. Reduce friction for training. Delete social media apps. Increase friction for distraction. Meal prep. Reduce friction for eating well. Turn off notifications. Increase friction for interruption. You design your environment so discipline becomes the default. I once worked with a corporate team that complained about productivity. Constant distractions, constant meetings. We're overwhelmed. I walked into their office, open floor plan, notifications pinging, phones lighting up every 30 seconds. I asked, "When do you think?" Silence. They had built an environment optimized for reaction, not execution, and then they called themselves lazy. No. You built chaos. You can't live in chaos and expect clarity. Let me be blunt with you. If you sleep with your phone in your hand and wake up scrolling, you've already lost the morning. Lost The first 10 minutes of your day sets your tone. Are you choosing it, or is it choosing you? When I was on detail, mornings were tactical, gear checked, briefings reviewed, routes confirmed. No random chaos. Why? Because high performance requires predictability. Not boring, predictable. Here's another story. There was a time when I wanted to improve my physical strength. I was plateaued, frustrated. So I hired a coach. You know what he did first? He simplified everything. 3 lifts, 3 days a week, progress tracked, no fancy programs, no confusion, and my strength climbed because clarity removes excuses. You say you want to change. Good. What's your wake-up time? What's your training schedule? What's your focus work block? What's your shutdown ritual? If you can't answer those clearly, you don't have a laziness problem. You have a vagueness problem. Vague goals create vague effort. Clear targets create clear action. Write this down. What are your 3 non-negotiables each day? Not 10. 3. For me, at different times, it was train, read, execute one hard task, no matter what. Bad mood? Do it. Tired? Do it. Uninspired? Do it. Mood follows action, not the other way around. And let me say this clearly, discipline is freedom, not restriction. Freedom. Because you know you can rely on yourself. Your confidence becomes unshakable. Unshakable. Let's kill the motivation myth. Motivation is a spark, discipline is the engine, and sparks don't last. Standing post outside for what felt like forever. No applause, no audience, no Instagram. Quote, just cold. Do you think I felt motivated? No, but the post still had to be manned. The perimeter still had to be secure. The job still had to be done. This is where people get it twisted. They think legendary people wake up inspired every day. No, they wake up committed. Committed is different. Motivation says, I feel like it. Commitment says, I said I would. Which one are you operating from? There was a night after a brutal week, travel, exhaustion, emotional strain, where I had a training session scheduled for early morning. I remember staring at the ceiling thinking, you could skip, no one would know. That's the test. Not when people are watching, when no one is watching. I got up, not because I felt strong, because I refused to negotiate with myself. That's a rule I built over time. No internal negotiations on pre-decided commitments. If it's scheduled, it's done. You eliminate the debate. Debate drains cognitive energy. That bathtub again. Every should I, shouldn't I, is water pouring in. Make fewer decisions. Decide once. You train at 6 a.m., then you train at 6 a.m. You write from 8 to 9 p.m., then you write from 8 to 9 p.m. Not if I feel creative. Feelings are weather. Commitment is climate. Weather changes. Climate endures. I once interviewed a high performer, not in law enforcement, but in business. Multi-million-dollar company. I asked him, what separates you from everyone else? He said one sentence, I do what I said I'd do long after the mood is left. That's it. From lazy to legendary is not about massive bursts of effort. It's about sustained follow-through when the excitement fades. Let me give you a family example. I had a relative who would get fired up every January. New planner, new goals, new identity. By March, gone. Why? Because motivation carried her through the first 30 days. Discipline never showed up. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Systems beat motivation, every time, and here's the uncomfortable truth. Some of you are addicted to the feeling of starting. Starting feels powerful. Finishing feels exposing, because when you finish, you get judged. By others, by yourself, so you keep starting. Over and over. New plan, new gym, new routine, but you never stay long enough to compound. Compounding is where legendary lives. When I started speaking professionally, my first few events were fine. Not extraordinary. Fine. I could have said, maybe this isn't my thing. Instead, I tracked. I refined. I delivered again and again and again. Reps build skill. Skill builds confidence. Confidence builds presence. But only if you stay in the game. If you quit every time the mood shifts, you'll spend your life at the starting line. Let me ask you something direct. What commitment have you been renegotiating with yourself? Be honest. The gym, the business idea, the book, the conversation you need to have. Pick one and decide once that for the next 30 days, there is no negotiation. Not dramatic, mechanical, legendary is mechanical. Let's talk about pain. Because the second things get uncomfortable, most people retreat. And then they call themselves lazy. No. You're pain avoidant. Big difference. There were assignments that pushed me physically and mentally past what I thought was my limit. Long shifts, high-threat environments, sleep deprivation, constant vigilance. You don't get to tap out because you're uncomfortable. And here's what I learned. Pain expands you if you don't personalize it. The problem is, people make pain mean something about who they are. This is hard becomes, I'm not cut out for this. No, this is hard means it's hard. That's it. I remember a training scenario where I underperformed in front of peers I respected. It stung, ego bruised. I felt exposed. That night I had two options. Option 1, protect my ego. The scenario was flawed. They were harder on me. Short-term comfort. Option 2, own it. You hesitated. You misread the room. Long-term growth. Short-term friend. Long-term enemy. Long-term friend. Short-term pain. Which do you choose? I chose the second. Not because it felt good, because it made me better. Resilience isn't about being unbreakable. It's about recovery speed. How fast do you reset? I once consulted with a professional athlete who was spiraling after a public mistake. One bad play, social media exploded. He started overthinking everything. I asked him, how many plays in your career? Thousands. And this one defines you. Silence. You are not that special. Your mistake isn't unique. Other people have missed shots, missed opportunities, lost deals, got rejected. You're not uniquely flawed. And that's freeing. Wait. Dead weight. I spent years studying people, interrogating them, watching their behaviors. The stories they told themselves about what happened became invisible chains. And the weird part? They all used the past as an excuse for inaction. I failed before, so I'll fail again. My parents didn't support me, so I can't succeed. I made that mistake, so I'm incapable. Sound familiar? Here's the hard truth. The past is a reference, not a residence. You don't live there. You visit, you learn, you move on. Period. I learned this the hard way during a high-risk operation overseas. Things went sideways. Details got overlooked. People got hurt. I replayed every choice over and over in my head for weeks. Every failure, every hesitation, I could see it like a replay tape. I got stuck. I was drowning in my own mind. Every if only was another gallon of water in the bathtub. Then a mentor pulled me aside. He said, Evy, the operation is over. What's done is done. You survived, you lead now. Don't drown in the stuff you can't change. I needed permission. Haha. And sometimes you do too. The past doesn't have power unless you give it power. I saw it with a client once. A young woman who wanted to start her own business. She'd been fired from 2 jobs. She told herself she was unlucky, that doors always closed. I asked, which door do you want open now? She froze. She didn't know she could choose differently today because she was living in yesterday. Choice is always present, even when it feels like it's not. Even when the weight of history tells you otherwise. Small step, let go of one story you're clinging to, just one. Write it down, tear it up, delete it. Do something physical to separate yourself from it. I did this once with a family member who kept saying, I've always been the screw-up, it's who I am. I asked her to list every failure from childhood to now. Then I asked, which of these do you actually control today? She paused, then laughed, then realized she had been carrying dead weight. Carrying it doesn't make you wise. It makes you stagnant. You can't move from lazy to legendary if you're carrying the past like luggage. You don't need to forget it. You need to stop letting it decide your present. Microstep, pick one thing, today. One thing that reminds you of a failure. Own the lesson, then put it down. Literally, symbolically, emotionally. Put it down, and let me remind you, just because you let go doesn't mean you become reckless. You become focused, laser-focused on what's actionable. Because legendary isn't built in mourning, it's built in movement. Movement forward, movement daily. Now we get to the meat, the tiny steps that actually change everything. Not theory, not motivation quotes, real moves that stack. Step 1. Own your morning, not the big morning, the micro morning. The first 30 minutes after you wake, that's when you set the tone for your mental bathtub. Shoes by the bed, that's part of it. Water the brain before it gets drowned in other people's noise. One action, one small victory. That's momentum. Step 2, Microtask your goals. I've seen CEOs, elite operators, all obsessed with one principle: shrink the step until it's almost embarrassing. Want to write a book? Paragraph a day. Want to get fit? 10 push-ups. Want to repair a relationship? One honest question. Embarrassingly small, but consistent. And consistency compounds. That's the iceberg principle. The visible part grows while the bulk is hidden effort. Step 3, protect your energy. You know what kills more ambition than laziness? Low vibration people. I can't tell you how many times I saw talented people drained because they kept rescuing drowning people. Friends, family, coworkers, the drowning rescuer phenomenon. You can't build legendary while saving someone else from their own chaos. Audit your circle. Less exposure, more distance. Not dramatic, tactical. Step 4, record your facts. Forget feelings. Forget I think and I feel. That's poison. Fact-based tracking is power. Sleep hours, tasks completed, calls made, reps done. Every week, review it. Small wins fuel confidence. Missed a step, adjust. Don't argue. Adjust. Facts win. Step 5, fear exposure. Micro exposure to fear domesticates it. That's what I did with high-risk operations and what I later applied to public speaking and consulting. Send one message. Have one hard conversation. Lift one heavy weight. Small, bite-sized. Repeat. Fear isn't eliminated. It's tolerated and mastered in increments. Step 6, brutal consistency. Not intensity, not bursts. Mechanical, relentless consistency. I trained every day even when I didn't feel like it. Reps, practice, structure. Legendary is not about being motivated. It's about being unwavering. Mood doesn't matter. Action matters. Step 7, let go of past stories. Dead weight. Every I failed so I can't narrative. Write it down. Put it down. You can't move forward carrying it. Your past is reference material, not a residence. One story at a time, just one. Released. Step 8, micro celebrations. Don't wait for the final victory. Reward yourself for showing up, for small wins, for completing steps. Keeps the bathtub clean, keeps motivation alive, keeps you human. Step 9, prioritize relentlessly. Not 10 things, 3 non-negotiables each day. If you can't identify them, that's why you feel lazy. Ambition is easy. Structure is hard. Identify 3 things. Do them. Every day, no debate. Shoes by the bed for the rest. Step 10, movement over mood. Legendary isn't feeling, it's doing. Move when you don't feel like it. Move when your brain tells you to wait. Move when your fear screams stop. Action is the antidote to fear, the antidote to doubt, the antidote to, I'm lazy. Environmental discipline. Audit your circle. Who energizes you? Who drains you? Less exposure to the drainers. More proximity to high-vibration people who stretch, challenge, and sharpen you. Distance is tactical, not dramatic. Necessary. Step 5, fact over feeling. Track your actions, not your emotions. Did you complete the task? Did you show up? Did you follow through? Evidence beats narrative. Evidence fuels confidence. Confidence fuels consistency. Step 6, fear micro-exposure. Do one thing that scares you every day. A difficult conversation. A new connection. A challenging workout. Tiny doses of discomfort domesticate fear. Courage is movement despite fear, not the absence of it. Step 7, release the past. One story at a time. One regret, one failure, one narrative you've been replaying. Write it down, examine it, put it down. The past is reference material, not a residence. Freedom starts when you stop letting old stories dictate your present. Step 8, resilience reps. Show up even when tired, even when embarrassed, even when you don't feel like it. Pain is data. Discomfort is training. Legendary isn't built on comfort. It's built on handling what others run from. Just make it to the next tree. Step 9. Consistency over intensity. Legendary is mechanical. Not inspired, not hyped, mechanical. Repetition over emotion. Day after day, small actions. They add up. Micro steps create macro results. Step 10, review, refine, repeat. At the end of each day, audit your 3 non-negotiables. What went well? What didn't? Adjust. Small course corrections compound faster than dramatic overhauls. Facts over feelings, evidence over excuses. Let me leave you with a